Bring the live stream on YouTube. Pow, 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 pow. How are you, GP?
I'm okay. I am doing a push-up challenge.
Oh,
If you want to join, it's not like a monthly or weekly, but it's a yearly push-up challenge.
okay. All
Uh,
right.
I can share the sheet with you. It's 10,000 push-ups for the year.
You're challenging everybody on YouTube who watches our show right now.
Okay,
Also,
I'm not going to send the sheet to everyone. That's just too much. You can track it on yourself, but Bags, if you want to join, I'll send you the link. The
yeah.
goal is the goal is 10,000 for the year, which works out to about 30 a day.
Yeah. What do you want me to cash tag here? Spy, Q, Tesla, AMD.
IWM. Let's do IWM.
I would love to do IWM, that piece of sh. I'm still getting over this. But hey, hi GP, I've missed you. Everything seems out of kilter when we're off a day or we move or but life happens. Things happen and here we are. And Nick is finally joining us. Hey, Nicholas. He's on the mute. Let's get the Twitter tweet out there. Hi Nick, we're already live. We just hit the button.
Oh, right on. How you guys doing?
We're good, man. We are good. Glad to see you. Glad to see everyone is doing well. You are not G Pies a 6, you're G Pies a 7.
That's
All right.
Twitter for you. I blame
Uh,
Elon. I'm gonna blame Elon for everything moving forward.
I mean, I there's a lot that is his fault. I mean, if we want to go into that again, we can beat this dead horse. But yeah, no, there's things that are his fault. He's not unscathed in this life. We got the cues up on the screen right now. Nice little gap up day.
Yeah,
We are sitting right at the nearly post-election level. So nice little level there to be at. RSI is curling over, which that's a bullish thing in most cases. But let's just be real. I mean, we've had several bad sessions in a row, or suboptimal sessions in a row. Um, I don't know, Nick. Have you changed your mind on how the market looks or what you're doing at all?
not really. I don't think it pays to be overly aggressive. I think uh you should be sitting, whatever on a from a swing trader's perspective, I think you should be sitting in at the very least your core longs and in core size, not so much like again kind of max long. It's not being rewarded right now. But
Yeah.
um I don't know, chop markets like this bring out the worst in all of us. So it's like when the market behavior changes, you got to kind of roll with it. So if breakouts aren't being rewarded, that means, and you're still a bull, that means you're buying either pullbacks to breakouts, you're buying pullbacks to moving averages, you're buying pullbacks to like the lower end of a range versus like trying to preemptively buy leading up to a breakout or that type of stuff. I think on the daily, I'm still very hesitant in just the sense that both the 10 and the 20 are rolling over. If we can hold here and break above like that 520, I'll probably change my tune to saying like, all right, maybe it is time to get aggressive again.
Mm.
Or potentially if we roll here, I'm
On the
kind of in the
spy?
camp on the cues. On the cues, so like if we roll here, um, I'd probably be in the camp that we're heading back towards like that gap fill, like somewhere between like mid 480s.
Mm.
So like on the daily, it's not that I'm bearish, it's like Duzio says Bosch, it's chop behavior. On the weekly, you should still be relatively bullish to maybe neutral, just being that kind of price is, I mean, as of today, we're back above the 10-week or the 50-day, but
Yeah, well, we undercut the 20 weekly and bounced right back above it today. So I mean
yeah,
that's always a pleasant thing to see when you get that type of bounce.
for sure. And then on the monthly, like obviously, like we're still in an uptrend, so you still got to be bullish. I, again, like I just don't think it's paying to be aggressive at the moment.
Mm.
Uh, I would not be surprised. I wouldn't really be surprised in either direction, whether we roll here and we kind of puke lower or we kind of break out because the last, like, realistically, the last month, basically starting with that massive, what day was that? 12/18. The fact that we really haven't seen a whole lot of follow through to the downside after a bar like that just kind of leads me to believe that we're going to break higher here. But I mean, again, you just got to let the price action kind of dictate your decision making.
Yeah, we're
And
still seeing more sellers than buyers. I mean,
yeah, for sure.
so
That
yeah, I mean, ideally in the bearish case, and it's been no secret, I've been bearish for 6, 8 weeks now. I shouldn't
Are
say bear.
you
I've
bear?
been selling positions.
When you say bearish though, like you're not saying bearish as in like you're thinking like another 2022 or another like year long 50-60% bear market or 30 to 50% bear, are you? Or are you thinking that that's what we're going to see?
I don't know. I think prices still can be lower. I mentioned that 480, 490 gap last week when we were talking, and I still think that
Yeah,
that's a pretty reasonable estimate. Now, is that where I will um, put more of my money to work? I don't know. I'm not
if
terribly
we if
optimistic about the first quarter. That's where I've been all along. I haven't been shy about saying that. So I guess I need to see how we're looking coming out of January into February,
sure.
and if we've already checked back out of that 480, 490 area, and I feel like that we've put some semblance of a short-term bottom in, then that might change my thesis a little bit. But I still think that we have some lower to go. But I want to hear what GP has to say. He was chomping at the bit. It sounded like to hop in there.
no, I'm not jumping up a bit. I think Nick makes a great point
But
that
some semblance.
Nick makes a great point that reward breakouts are not being rewarded.
Hmm.
Um, hold on one second. Reward breakouts are not being rewarded, but nor are breakdowns, right? Like you're
Right.
not you're it's resistance points to support points. It is algorithmic. It is flow based. It is what Duzio obviously refers to as chop chop boom, right? So um, we're in chop chop market. We've literally gone nowhere since July, and reminds me quite often of our 2015 2016 time period where the SPY finally broke out of the double top from 2000 and 2008 and went higher and then consolidated for nearly, I think, 18 months in this range. Um, we could potentially be in that regime here, but if you look at that life cycle was obviously a longer life cycle, and this is a shorter life cycle. So I don't think it's going to be the um, same time period. On the SPX, we hit 100% extension, like literally bang on within a couple of points, and we're chopping around. This is normal and expected behavior to me. And while that's happening, yeah,
Yeah.
you can. Everyone's always wanting a monster correction on any small dip, but while that's happening, the IWM is setting up again, in my opinion, right? Like the small caps are setting up. They are they are miserable on a trading basis until they trend. Once they trend, they are a monster, right? So that's why everyone wants to be involved in this trade ultimately, because when it's go time, it's go time. And so I think a lot of the positioning from the last FOMC to maybe this FOMC was we're going to run rates up, we're going to run dollar up, we're going to counter trend the rally, and the market's kind of responding to that counter trend rally. I'm not really about narratives because I could care less, but we've had a monster run in the markets over the last 2 years. We got to a fib extension that's typically a very hard resistance to get over on the first attempt. It'll chop around and then go through. So I fundamentally believe that we're going to see much higher prices in the markets from now until maybe third, second quarter or so. And then I think we could potentially get a bigger kind of correction, but I haven't done that level of analysis. I'm talking about weekly, I'm talking about the next few months. I think into March we have a pretty good rally, and we'll see what happens. What I know is I've been posting the last couple of days on Twitter, and we are tied to the index. So if the index ramps down, almost everything kind of follows with it, right? Like it's not. And when we're tied to that, that's to me is options flow. That is that. But when we start to decouple from that, when things start to outperform, is the time where you need to start to pay attention a bit more. But right now, we're tied to the index. And this is the same bullshit that happened last January UpX. So I think I pointed this out to someone
Mhm.
on on StockTwits yesterday. So last January, we closed SPX at 48.39. Typically, people anticipate a 20% move higher, right, in a given year on average or whatever on an outperforming year after the 2023. So they end up selling calls that are 20% out of the money, right? To collect that premium. This is typical. So the 20% mark from last January UpX to this January UpX from 48.39, bang on 58.06. So when we pushed above that, this is coincidental, I know, but it was just funny for me to see it, right? And our weakness was right back into the 58. Oh, it hit 58.05 yesterday, right? And that's been the level where it's come back to, because this is typical January UpX premium collection crap that happens every January, literally every January. Um, and so you just got to kind of watch it and see how we actually unfold after the UpX. That's what I'm interested to see.
Yeah, I mean, and it'll unwind on Friday, right? So, I'm not.
But the decay starts happening today, right? Into Friday. So
Yeah,
that's what you want to see. And you're already seeing it. So
yeah, yeah. But what I'm saying is OPEX is Friday, right? And that'll be the final unwind of that. You guys know me well enough. I'm not a pessimistic guy. I mean, I've been long for as long as both of you have known me, and I'm still long, a lot of names. Um, I just got to around 50% of my position in cash a couple weeks ago, and I nibbled a little bit into last week, and I bought some Mobileye on their uh, catastrophe of a CES, which I kind of think is bullshit news.
was not
Really,
a catastrophe at all.
I mean,
It
look
was
at that.
just yeah.
Yeah, well, no, it's a catastrophe in the sense of price action, right? So
Correct.
I'm betting on a bounce. I'm not staying in this for a long time, but I'm already positive money from buying 2 days of dips, right? So I don't want anyone to take away that I'm a perma bear or that I just think everything is going to zero. That's not the case. I guess if anything, right now I just feel like the market is fully valued. We're at a price point where, I mean, Nick, I hadn't even looked at the monthly in a couple weeks, but you look at the monthly, right? Like it's it it kind of seems full up there on the SPY. I look at it on the Qs. I mean, we came out of December with a 0.29%, and right now in January we're at 0.94%. Um, doesn't seem like there's a lot of upside there. So a pullback into 490, which would just be the monthly 9 EMA, 486 right now. Um, I think that would be able to scrape some of the cream off the top.
Yep.
Now, does that mean that all of a sudden I'm 100% long again? I don't know. I look at this RSI down here, and that's pretty overbought. But as I've said 10,000 times, overbought can stay overbought and oversold can stay oversold. But it's just nothing is getting me to the levels of, oh my God, I just gotta have all my money in this name or that name. I'm not trading around a lot. So I feel like I can pull some out and wait for better setups. That's all. And GP, this IWM trade is maddening. If you're right and Duzio's right and IWM goes higher from here, then yeah, it's probably going to lift everything else up too. I mean, the banks had really good earnings today, which
Monster.
in most of those cases will lift a lot of IWM names. But at the same time, I'm looking at the action that it's getting, typical post bank earnings. When they go higher, they immediately get sold off. And I'm just looking at the IWM here, and that's exactly what's happened. I can guarantee I can look at the XLF and it's going to be the same thing. Haven't even looked at it yet. Oh, it's higher actually. So I was wrong.
But you're looking at the wrong. It's regionals that are showing weakness.
So there you
The
go.
big financials are fucking crushing it. Look at
Uh,
Goldman today. Look at Goldman.
and I'm not trying to shit on a gap up. A gap up's a great thing. But until we get out of this environment that I think you're in, I think we're in. I think it is a sell all rips still. And in the regionals, it's showing that. In a lot of IWM names, it's showing that. So I've been wrong. I've been wrong on the bullish side. I've been wrong on the bearish side. Nick, I think you hit the nail on the head kind of where I'm at. Um, I'm just being more conservative, maybe than I have been in the past. And if that's a negative thing, then sue me. I'm a terrible uh, perma bullish investor.
You know, I'm waiting for yeah. It just I'm not gonna say it. It's probably too crude. Um, but AMD looks good today, right?
I know,
And
I was gonna say that too.
it's a bottoming process. Everyone's given up. What I was gonna say is the market tops when Lisa signs Jensen's taint, but um, it's an inside joke. But ultimately, a lot of this stuff is not to me. It's not worrying. It's constant bicker. It's like a married couple. This market, right? It's constant bickering. It's like
That's not what
all
my
the
marriage is like. I hope that's what not you guys are like. I mean, I don't know.
I grew up in an Asian
I'm
household
just teasing.
where
I'm just teasing. Just teasing.
but yeah, it's so like obviously AMD is doing its thing. It is a miserable trader, so I'm not gonna shine any halos about a one day $3 move, but or $4 move. But I think this is what you're seeing though across the board. Everyone, so many things are coming back and retesting. Look at the volume on AMD, right? Like that's not a lot of volume on the sell side, yet it cannot stop going down. If you look at Affirm, right? Take a look at Affirm as well. But look at this. In fact, a 20 point move down on zero fucking volume, right? Like, so and what's it doing? It's just back testing the breakout,
Yep.
right? At 53. And so I think this is very indicative of um, option flow, right? And I'm not saying that the low volume means that it's bullish, because what we saw in 2022, which was the start of low volume selling, then resulted in higher volume selling as we got closer to the breakdowns. That's a possibility here, but that's what I need to see for me to be worried. Right now, it's a low volume consolidative retest of a breakout. So if that fails and gets sold on higher volume, then we'll reassess. But all of now looks like healthy corrective, sorry, not healthy, but corrective action.
Yeah.
Because it you shouldn't have moves like this quick on a stock, right? Like for a firm, I find it ridiculous. I also know that it's super volatile, so I get that, but it's like the market over the last month has just lost all its buyers, right?
Yes.
And there's only sellers, but there's not enough sellers yet.
Right. No, I
They're
mean,
making out,
I
right?
feel like you're describing what I've been saying, right?
Yeah.
Like I feel like we need to wipe some of the cream off, cool the market down a little bit, and then reevaluate and see if we can go higher from there. Nick, it sounded like you was sorry, it sounded like GP was getting an amen from the congregation from you there on AMD. What is it about AMD that you like?
I mean, I just like that it was actually participating today. Um, Again, like still on that like weekly time frame, but it's kind of sitting down there at like the low end of like that, massive descending wedge. Um, I kind of like how it basically, so it basically had this range from like 130 to basically like 120. Uh, Last week, whatever day that was, Thursday or Friday, or I don't know what day it is today. But either way, we took out that low, the 118 low. We rallied the next day, sold off again the following day, and couldn't really take that out. So there wasn't a whole lot of follow through. And I kind of like the push above the 118.50.
Yeah.
Um, it's not my kind of trade. Like I don't have any interest in like buying it here, but for like a long-term investor like you or someone that was like they have a big position in this, like this would be a spot where I would be looking to add because you're less likely to really do much damage to your cost basis, especially if you're longer from lower. And it's
Yep.
sitting on that 4-year moving average on the week or on the monthly. Um, the MACD on the monthly is not quite stretched yet, so you could see more downside, but either way. I was gonna say like I feel like a lot of froth was getting wiped out with kind of like all of the quantum stuff, the robotic stuff, the drone stuff. Um, all of those names took a massive beating. And so like if we see another leg down or any kind of like weakness and those took another nosedive, because I would imagine that guys that are on the quantum short trade right now are probably reloading as of today. Or like at least I would imagine. Maybe not, but um if we do see weakness, I think those are the names to kind of go after for another like capitulatory leg lower if you're trying to play the short side. But it kind of looks to me like there's money kind of, yeah, I don't know. I don't know where I was going with that, but
No, on an AMD note, Nick, you're exactly right. I mean, it's been well documented. I tell everybody I am very long AMD. I have held AMD, and it's one of my biggest positions. I am looking for a place to add shares down here. And you guys know I don't look at the daily a lot. I prefer the weekly time frame. But looking at the daily, I mean, you've got this sort of island reversal down, right? That when I look at it on the weekly, you see it really clearly that it failed the 9, right? And
Yep.
the 9 weekly, very clearly. Then all the way down through here, right? You're failing the 9 daily, all the way, all the way, all the way. So yeah, I would love to add shares in the 1 teens, but until it clears and is able to stay, I mean, let's just call it 124. Um, it's not something that I feel like I can put a lot behind. I mean, it's still one at 124, it's still below the 9 weekly. So I'm not saying 124 is an all clear spot, but it's got to prove it can do that on the daily here over the next couple of sessions, probably. I'm going to keep looking, but if I just mark 124 here on my chart, right? Like for a few weeks, that has been a trouble area. So I need to see it break above that and hold above that. And we can go all the way back in time if we need to and see how important 124 is.
121 is the bigger one, I think.
Well, my point was I was coming back here to March or May, June. And when you see that, that means that that's a support resistance point, right?
Yeah,
You go above, you go below, you test it, you go below, and you fail. And then you test it, you test it, you test it, and then you break out. So 124 is where I'm watching. It doesn't mean I'll get in at 124, but that's where I want to see AMD finally prove that it's able to tread water at the very least.
So can we go back to the daily on AMD?
Of course.
And so I'm gonna take a few minutes and talk about technicals here, right? So I think some of this stuff doesn't get discussed quite often, but what I've noticed over time, and you'll see it across the board, is when you have a big move down, right? Like AMD has had 227 straight to 121, bounced, came back and retested 121, and then had these three. I think I talked about this last week, but if I didn't, I'm just going to repeat here a little bit. Is these three capitulatory candles that happened last week that you have that double bottom, right? Essentially, that's happening, and you
Yep.
have this. What was that? A 12, 13% move down in 3 days, right? Those three candles there. That's
Yep.
a that's a 12, 13% move down after it's already almost down 50%. Those, like, the volume's not there, but that signals that capitulation has happened on all levels, right? On volume, on sentiment, on everything. It has happened many times in the markets before. You can go back and check for yourself. But this doesn't mean it bottoms right away, but this is the bottoming process, right? So
Right.
once you get over 124, you get the confirmation. Great, it's going to go up higher. But this is where, to me, you start to build this position, right? Your risk to reward is pretty managed here. So if I'm wrong, you're taking a few percent here down, right? Maybe 10% or whatever. Keep wider stops, lower position size until it confirms, and then you can add bigger position size. So this has happened before many times. I think the best example I can give you is if you go back to the Qs.
On the daily?
Yeah, daily, but go back to May, June 2022 to understand what the bottoming process looks like. That's why I'm giving this example here, right? Yeah, so you see that, right? So from January 2022 to May 2022, we were down 30 something or 25% at that point in
Yep.
an index, right? Not a stock, in an index, which is a culmination of stocks. So that's a pretty big move down already in an index. And then into the just all the news we had, that's a 3 day gap down process, clearing out all different levels and all that other stuff. You'll see that the volume isn't crazy, right? And we talked about this back then too. I'm like, this is the bottom, right? And we came back and tested in October. But this, you see how that was a 12% move in an index in 3 days, or 11% move in an index that's already down 20 something percent. What was the move?
Uh, that 3 days, that'd be 12.1.
like mind blown. Like, dude, who's left to sell, right? There's no one left to sell. Sentiment's in the fucking garbage. And so these are very kind of, I think, powerful setups if you're paying attention, right? And so obviously we chopped around for a long time from there. I'm not saying that it was the bottom, but what this gave me is the confidence to find stocks that I want to be long, right? And build positions. So this is literally around the time I started my Netflix position, right? And so it's stuff that you guys want to watch for, I think, moving forward. When you have sentiment in the garbage and then you have another 12% move down from there, that is usually, and it's usually comes in these 3-day clusters. It's
Am I the
usually
only
just,
one that's long AMD?
no, I'm long AMD.
Okay. Nick, you're in it all?
I'm
No.
long AMD on multiple fronts. So I got leaps, I got shares, I've sold puts, right? Like I'm long on multiple fronts because I know everyone's like everyone wants it to go higher, so it can't go higher. No, that contrarian theory works until it doesn't, right? And so yeah,
Guys, I
maybe
gotta
they
run
wipe
out.
it. Yeah, sorry, I was chatting too
I
much.
got
My
a
bad.
bullet. No, I got a bullet. I'll catch you guys later.
Thanks,
All right.
Nick.
Yeah, you got it.
And so I just wanted to like just provide my understanding of how these things look. And people will argue with me on it's going to go to 90, it's going to 100. I don't really care. It's bottoming, right? And
Yeah.
and so that's what I'm trying to figure out here. I'm not in your day-to-day camp or whatever, but this also leads me to believe that AMD outperforms Nvidia this year, right? And so I think they both rise together, but I think it outperforms. So there's that.
AMDL. Was that a levered play there, T-Stonk?
Yeah.
2x leveraged.
Is it
Actually,
time? I don't, it's not time yet. When it's chopping, you can't do the decay stuff, right? So I would, to me, this is not where you want to bottom fish. You want to bottom fish in this once the trend starts to set.
on a different note,
Yeah.
Soxel, which is the SMH levered, right? I am obviously very long that too. Um, this this is getting to the point of a buy, which leads me to when am I going to be able to buy some more AMD, right? Um, so I love seeing that RSI set up. I love getting those moving averages all bunched up there. I love the crossover on the RSI. So I'm not saying, just like UGP, I'm not saying that it can't go a little lower, but I think the time is getting near. Um, yeah, I could buy some shares here, at 120 and then wait and go above 124. Like I could absolutely do that. I just don't want to start putting money to work too soon because there might be other names that we need to get to. And that was one thing I was hoping Nick was going to be able to hang on just a minute longer and we could get his quarterly stock pick. I'll text him and see if he can send it to me.
Oh, I didn't even do that. Maybe we can just push it to next week. I don't know.
We'll push it to next week. But I
Or
love it.
sorry,
I love all the bullishness for AMD. Believe me, I'm here for it. And I'm not a doomer. I'm not saying the market is going to zero. I just think it's been wise over the last 8 weeks to be a little more conservative and cautious. That's all.
yeah, and I'm not a doomer in AMD. I think what I was trying to people focus too much on 1, 2 day whatever moves, right,
Yeah.
and stuff like that. But bottoming has and always will be a process. It is it takes time to repair sentiment. It doesn't happen in a day. So this is the time when you see these kinds of stuff where you start to build where your risk reward is mitigated, right? Like if you're at a level where your lows here are 114, I understand percentage wise that it's a decent percent, right? So you keep wider stops, but this is where you can build, and I think you can build pretty comfortably over the next few months if it stays around here, and then enjoy it. And your risk is not huge. You have a pivot low to to go from here. So what is that? It's at 119.98 and the low was 114.43 or something, right?
Yeah, about that 114.45, 114.50. Yeah, we'll just call it 114.50.
So I don't, in these bottoming processes, I don't like to set stops necessarily. I rather just handle stops via position sizing
Yep.
because getting stopped out consistently does insane amount of damage to your mental capital.
Yep.
And we've talked about this so many times here. Mental capital is one thing that you need to protect on all time frames, right? So
Brian just said, and I want to address this. He thinks it's a little lower too. He's waiting on the 90s. The amount of charts and the amount of people saying that they think 90s is the exact reason why I don't think you're getting 90s.
yep.
Um, Market makers know where people's stops are. And they know where the limit buys are too. And I guarantee there are so many buys in the 90s that it is fucking ridiculous. Um, I think I think we probably undercut this recent low if we don't have a move up here. And I would say somewhere right around 110. That coincides with May 23rd, 2023, and that coincides with October 12th, 2023. Both of those are 111.31 and 110.99. So I would almost bet on 111, 112.
Yeah.
Maybe I am going to bet on that. I don't know.
I feel like the consensus is not AMD long, it's AMD
Where?
is going to be lower.
Yeah. Where to get long, right?
Yeah. Right. So once again, I think I think fundamentally it's not that expensive either. So
Oh.
it's it's a good, I think it's a good risk to reward. Dude, we're in the markets of probability, so give
Yes.
yourself opportunities to be as close to a great probability as possible, right? So
GP, we had one question come from Stock Twits, excuse me.
yeah.
Uber. I don't know if you have a position or if you have looked at Uber, but our take was solicited on Uber.
Okay. Um, so I definitely when Uber sold off on, sorry, Uber got bought up on the Tesla robotaxi news, you knew it was the final leg up, right? Because Uber getting what, that was like a 25% move on the back of someone's event was a ridiculous price action. So that's the first things first, right? So you had like kind of a double top and it's coming out and retesting the zone that I've been wanting to test for so long, and it finally did it, which is that 61 level. Where if you look back, why that level is important is it's the, if you look back to December 14th, 2023, you see that big volume, that red bar right there. I've been waiting to test those sellers for a long time. So I like what it's doing now. That's a huge volume, right? It was some kind of rebalancing. So, but
15th, you were wrong. Ha! I've been waiting to say that. Ha!
so I've been waiting for that to happen, and it finally kind of happened on sentiment, on all this other stuff. So I really like how it's held that and is pushing up higher. I think Uber has its own challenges over time. They're a well executed company. The amount of money that I'm paying for Ubers now versus before is exponentially higher. So that means their focus on profitability remains very laser focused. And robo taxis, or autonomous driving or whatever all this stuff is is good for the overall markets. It's going to be a rising tide lifts all conversations, right? So Uber will benefit just as much as Tesla. So it being a pair trade makes no sense to me. One may win over the other. I don't care about that necessarily, but both will. It's a market that is at this point unmeasurable TAM, right? We won't know what the market is, but you're seeing remnants of how it can look with New York enabling congestion pricing, right? If congestion pricing is happening and all the streets are empty, and then you have all these robo taxis taking over from Waymo, um, from Uber, from Tesla, whoever it is that gets there first and continues to build, is a goal to set up. And we've talked about this before. I think the newer generation doesn't want to own cars as much, right?
No.
And so I think it's all increasing size of the pie. That being said, Uber hit the 50-day and got rejected.
I just had to pull up my favorite short, CarMax. Gap up and crap down.
That's been the MO, right?
Yeah.
Nothing holds, but nothing also breaks down really. It's
Well,
like in this wide range.
again, I this has been a perfect opportunity for me to begin to rebalance, right? Because I'm selling all rips and I'm nibbling at stuff at levels that I think make sense. Um, Whether it was Pfizer, which is a big old turd, but I'm enjoying the dividend, or a slaughter that's Mobileye that I'm just looking for a sympathy balance, right? Like these aren't trades that I have to sit here and babysit. These are trades that um, as soon as I buy, I can put in my sell order and say, hey, especially on Mobileye, there's 10%, right? Just like there's thank you. So that's all I'm looking to do right now. And Uber for me, I do like the way it's kind of building out here. It's right on the 50 right now. It's pretty much bang on the 50, but it's recollected those moving averages. The RSI is moving up. Um, so, I mean, yeah, sure, you'd love to bought lower, but everybody thinks that when you see those huge sell-offs that it's time to get out. So I don't have a position in Uber. I do kind of like the way it looks. For me, if anything, I mean, I'd be looking to, you know, buy 65 and sell 71.
Yeah.
That's
Short
what
term
I would do for me.
I like it. I like it. I like it. It's going to be range bound for a while until it's not, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah,
so
yeah. If it breaks under 65, then I mean the trade's probably kaput. You've got like I like that line right there that I've got at 64, 61. I might even put if I were in it, I might even put my stop right there.
now, since we're talking about Uber, we should probably talk about Tesla.
Yeah, please.
So Tesla bring up
Wait, first time out. The time as we talk about Tesla, full disclosure, I sold puts to open a few weeks ago when GP was like, "We're going to 1 million. We're going to test 420 first, like it's going to happen." And I was like, "Fuck it. I'm going to just sell a bunch of puts and I'm going to be assigned some common because 420 is going to happen." Well, 420's happened, and I've got till Friday for it to stay under 420 to get assigned my shares, or I would have been better off just buying 380, 390. But all jokes aside, I
Did you collect premium, right?
yeah, I collected premium. I
Hefty
collected.
premium.
Yeah. I collected premium. I'm not complaining. This is not a complaint or an indictment on UGP. This is just I have never been on the edge of my seat for sold puts in my entire life because
Welcome to
because
Tesla.
when it was here, right? Like I'm like, all right, I've got a chance at getting it. And then when it's here in 380s, I'm like, motherfucker, right? Like I'm gonna get assigned these 420 shares, and I could have bought it 380 anyway. Um,
Welcome
So
to the
yes,
life of Tesla.
please proceed with Tesla as I had to set the stage for everyone.
It will never leave you bored. That is 100% trading Tesla at any point in time. If you're holding shares, same thing. If you're holding puts, it is a very exciting fucking stock. But anyway, go to the monthly.
There you go.
So I posted this chart on StockTwits anyway yesterday, but you see that breakout candle in 2021?
Yeah.
What was the high there?
The breakout
Or
candle
the
in
last one, the last
2021.
one.
Yeah,
The
that
big
one right there.
green one on very low volume.
The big Dick Daddy one there. What was the high? 371.74.
And see where we just tested our monthly candle in January.
373.04.
Yes, it is
Said yes, bitch.
it's a monthly back test. But it's it's doing all the things to annoy everyone. But if you expand your time frames, this is just to me it's looking fantastic, right? And someone I posted a chart of Tesla monthly 3 days into the month or 2 days into the month, and people are like, "How reliable is this?" And I was like, "It's a visual, right? It's a conversation of what do we just do?" So on a monthly, all we did was back test a breakout, right? And we are holding. So if we're holding on a monthly candle like that, it's good. We just took out the delivery highs. We just took out prior year highs, um, which obviously is only like 3 days ago, but it it looks good. Uh, the weekly has been holding the 10 EMEA or 10 SMA, whichever one you use, but 10 EMEA is bang on. 10 SMA is a little bit holder, but every time if you go to the weekly now on Tesla, you see those three candles with the wicks. Now zoom out a bit more.
Zoom out.
Yeah. Right. So that gap up, that monthly gap up I was talking about there, right? That big candle there, right? Not the third one, but the second one. It's
Yeah.
essentially it's that last breakaway gap, and the wicks are happening exactly at that breakaway gap again too, right? So these are all things that lead me to believe that Tesla is going to go much, much higher from here. I think people I don't know if it's just recency bias or new investors, but when Tesla has these moves, I was talking to someone on Twitter and I was like, I think Tesla's going to 1,000, and they're like, no way, that's never going to happen. And I'm like, have you been involved at all? Right? Like, it literally went from $32 in 2013 to $380 in 2014. In 2019, it went from $26 to 206 $414. This is all pre-split, post-split, right? Um, so like you don't think it can double and a little bit more from here? I get that the market cap's a little bit bigger now than it used to be, so it won't be the same 10x move, but I find it so weird that people think that Tesla going to 1,000 is unfathomable.
Well, you know what I find so funny, GP, and believe me, I have been a very vocal critic of Elon, right? Like I'm unabashed about my criticism of a lot of things around him. But what you posted last night in my or you reposted me when the SEC suing him, I said this is the most ridiculous shit or stupid shit I've seen all day, and I watched the Senate hearings today. Um, you're exactly right. It's the same playbook every time. I posted a couple weeks ago. Elon's tied to whatever happens with Trump and the EV rebates and the solar whatever that I forgot what Axios. had put out, or it wasn't Axios. I think it was the Wall Street Journal. It's the same hit pieces. Like it's as often as he has promised self-driving, it's these same hit pieces. It's like a perfect cycle with his bullshit and the media's bullshit. And then when it's the media's bullshit, the stock goes higher. When it's his bullshit, it's usually kind of like leveling off, right? Or basing. It's the same shit. And I've been following this stock for the better part of 10 years. And this is the fucking cycle, right? Like this is the cycle. How many times do we have to repeat it? So well,
The the next one is going to be Tesla's going to recall 1.8 million cars, and it's going to be some over-the-air update. It's like
yeah, well, like the guy who blew himself up in front of Caesar or in front of Trump in Trump's hotel international in Las Vegas, right? Like all of a sudden, like that's the car's fault, right? It's not. And I think the media's headlines and the way they portray the person versus the stock couldn't be more incorrect, right? The person's the person and the stock is the stock. And
Yep.
yes, one influences the other, but at the end of the day, it's this same cycle of, oh, when they're on Elon's nutsack, that's when we're basing, and that's when he starts acting out. And you might see some dips, you might see some act out. And then when they are all over him, that's when all of a sudden the stock jumps 180%.
It's the you know how there's like a Krebs cycle in science?
Yep.
It's the Elon cycle in this stock. It is when his ego is blasting on blast where he's like he's there is no one who's smarter than him. There is no one who's more right than him. You trim down your position. It is
Couldn't be more
literally
true.
and so and then they destroy the stock. All of a sudden, Elon gets refocused. He goes quiet. Boom, boom, and then
Couldn't
it
be
goes
more
back.
true. Could not be more true.
It's the Elon cycle. I talked about it in January 2023. Right? Everyone's like, oh, it's a good pullback. I was like, no, this is the Elon. Oh, sorry, that was a good. It's gonna go lower when it was at like 100 and something, and I was like, that's gonna go. No, this is the point where Elon says, okay, shit, my net worth is gonna get destroyed if I don't get my shit together.
Couldn't be more true. It really couldn't. We got one request on Coinbase, or did you have anything else on Tesla? Is that it?
No, no, I can talk about that level of 10 years of watching these headlines. It's can talk about it forever.
Coinbase, real quick for me and GP, hop in. I think we are on the verge of going much higher. Bitcoin, again, I know this is not a direct correlation to Bitcoin. I'm not thick in the head, but Bitcoin has done what it's needed to do. We're going to have a weekly close higher than 97.7. You can, or yes, we're going to have a weekly close higher than 97.7. And when that happens, we are going full yeet mode higher, and Coinbase is going to follow it. I don't care what the technicals are. That's what's going to happen.
There's going to be a day when Coinbase has another 30% move. It's coming. This compression, this slow beatdown to everyone's internal psyche, it is going to release like like a teenager at prom, right? Like it's going to it I I'm not worried about the short term. The long-term charts look phenomenal to me. So what it does from day in and day out, I don't really care.
I mean, if you look at the monthly, that's an inverted head and shoulders.
Yeah. Hell of a lot of volume buying, all in the base, and they're still buying in the consolidation quarterly. Take a look at the quarterly. I think it's
That said,
look at that.
I am appropriately long Coinbase. I have not been adding. The time to add was in the 50s and 60s, as we said 2 years ago almost now. anything can trade. I don't have the time or luxury to be a trader right now. Um, However, that being said, if I were wanting to start a position, I would be looking at this level right here where we're at right now, and that's where I would be building or adding to my position in this area if it were me. Not
Yep.
financial advice, just what I would do.
There's a lot of things here, like on a weekly, on a monthly, on an overall basis. It's literally gone nowhere since last February, right?
Yeah,
1 year of consolidation. You can talk about the gyrations, but
yeah,
if you bought in February and if you bought in January of
you're right
2025,
there. Yeah, right there.
you're essentially sideways. So,
You're right there.
uh,
I mean, God bless you if you were able to snipe 150 or 170 or even 180, right? Like
I sniped a
you're
Vietnam.
loving it. You're loving it. But I mean, I don't know how many times UP and I can tell you this right here. I just I don't know. So I'm appropriately long from down there.
Yeah, I am a big fan of it. It looks it will frustrate the living ever loving piss out of you for sure. But I think this is all part of the cycle for when it actually takes out all-time highs, right? Um, I like it.
Jason
So
just gave us a big ew. I'm wondering what he's ewing about. Tell me, Jason. We got like 5 minutes left here. GP, is there any chart that you wanna anything that we missed that you'd like to hit?
so I posted a chart today, and I know it's the most hated sector in in life, in the markets, and BABA.
Baba.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I obviously it's miserable. There's no two ways to put it. But I put on a trade today. I bought I'll put it out there. I don't normally disclose stuff. I bought June 120 calls here,
All right.
right? $1.27 is
All
what I
right.
paid for it, I think. Um it is a to me on a weekly time frame, there's a lot of accumulation and a huge beat down on not a lot of volume. Um, I think this story changes in the next few months, and I kind of want to be ahead of it a little bit. And if not, it's a loss for me, right? So full disclosure, I don't have much stop. I don't have a stop on this. This is one of those, and so I handled that via position sizing. So I didn't go out and buy $20,000 worth of calls or $100,000 worth of calls. I got long calls, the amount, if I bought shares, what my stop would be. That's what I bought in calls. So, but I
So
like,
I did almost the same exact thing. Um, I guess that would have been September, October of 22. Would have been 22? No, of 23. We're in 2025. Yeah, of 23. So I bought the same thing, 120 calls for this year's OPEX expiry, which is 2 days from now. And after being in a world of hurt, I sold this bar right here, and I was like, "Fuck." I mean, I don't get me wrong. I was very happy to get the
yeah,
return that I got on it with this bar because I had to sell the huge gap up, right? But as it went higher, I see those turn into like 300 and 400% gains. And now look at it now, down to $80. And I'm like, thank God I wasn't being a greedy piece of shit and sold out of that thing. I like it, GP. I don't know. I mean,
I know
I
6 months is aggressive in this name,
for,
but it's
for
been
me,
so sideways for so long that I think the coil and the release is going to be within a few months. And if it isn't, I'm wrong, and that's it, right? That's
well, I like the trade. I would probably do next year's leaps if it were me, just to buy a little more time. They're
I'm no
more
longer ever doing January leaps anymore because of how they treat price action into January leaps. Like they constantly destroy it every January. So January leaps are now I was talking to my brother last night. It is done. So if I do any leaps, it'll be March or June, right?
Well, you're
Because
not supposed to hold them into expiry anyway.
I know, but it should like they don't need to destroy it by 30%, right?
Well, I feel you. I feel you. But that's what I was telling my story is that's why I sold in September, right? As
Yep.
opposed to saying, oh, well, it's already at 110. Of course it's going to go to 120 by January. Well, you see what the fuck they do to you, right? Anyway, I
I'll
would
give you
like to have I'd like to have the few extra, a little bit of time, but I do like the trade. I haven't looked at this chart since like October, but I like the trade.
Yeah, like I'll give you the example. What we were talking about was KRE. KR, me and my brother, nailed it, right? Like bought that low. We bought January 60 calls. Um, went from I think I bought them for 199 or something like that. Um, and they went all the way up to like 15 or 16 bucks, right?
Yeah.
Or like 14 bucks on that election gap up. And I was like, yes, yes, yes. And then they destroyed it for 7 straight weeks, right? And I was like, ah, crap. And then so today I was able to get out of them for about a 50% gain, but I gave up a lot of stuff. So that was my like, I'm just not buying January leaps because there's too much money that goes into these 2 years out that and most of the time it's not buys, it's sells, right? They're selling
Yes.
premium.
Yes.
So they're going to want to make sure that, especially if the market went up considerably higher, they're going to want to make sure that their premium, their stock doesn't get called away or they don't lose a lot of money. So
Yeah.
it happens.
Yeah, I feel you.
Can you,
Just from personal experience, you don't hold leaps into expiry.
yeah,
Well,
yeah, no,
you shouldn't
that's
hold
the
any
way.
calls in my personal opinion. You shouldn't hold anything into expiry.
No, no, no,
You got to sell the rip. You got to sell the gap up.
because that's when the IV is priced up too.
Yeah. All right, GP, you were saying. Okay, I'll
I
look
was
up
just
what.
saying I gotta step away for a couple of minutes, so you can either wait and continue chatting, or we can end this.
We're in an hour. Love you. Bye.
Bye.